welcome everybody. Welcome to Vocal Code Conversations. I am back with an amazing guest. She's one of my favorite people online because we haven't actually met, and I'm hoping that we do soon. I want to introduce myself, and then I'm going to introduce my lovely guest. My name is Sharleen, the Vocal Alchemist, and I help public speakers, I help coaches, I help recording artists, anybody with a voice that is using that voice to create the vision that they want for themselves. And I help people to do that with authenticity, confidence, magnetism, sovereignty. I help singers to sing with ease, with complete agility, with the confidence, the stamina that it takes for you to go on the road and perform night after night after night. And one of the ways that I do that as a vocal alchemist is I am attuned to hear the energetic frequencies of your speaking voice and your singing voice. And that's called a vocal code. Within your vocal code holds all of your belief systems and all of your characteristics. And I am able to really hear the types of belief systems, the type of character traits that you hold within you that are helping you or sabotaging you from really realizing and bringing to fruition the life that you really desire to have within the music industry or whatever field that you are in. And my job is to help you to get aligned to your most powerful self. And it's completely amazing because clients that work with me, their voices start to change and their tone starts to become warmer, and they tend to attract more opportunities and they become more magnetic. And I could talk about it for hours because I'm so passionate about it. And I have with me the most amazing guest for you today, viewers. Her name is Grace Kelly. She is a business coach currently residing in Italy. And what makes her stand out for me in the online space is that she leads with helping women to really create businesses, but from the perspective of it being easy and it being graceful. There are so many women out there who tend to lead with adrenaline and stress. And what I love about Grace is that she embodies what she teaches. And you're going to hear her voice in a second, and I'm going to read her vocal code in a second. But what I really am attracted to about Grace is that she herself is so centered and she's so calm, and she really leads women away from the type of insecure thought that creates stress in the first place. So I just want to say welcome to you, Grace.
Thank you so much, Sharleen. Goodness, I'm just really enjoying the whole introduction. You have me mesmerized with this vocal code. I've never heard of this. I love it. This is incredible. Well done you for bringing something so powerful to the world. So thanks for having me on the podcast. What a great way to commence.
Wow, thank you for saying so. I really appreciate that. The whole vocal code thing started maybe a year ago, and I noticed that I was really picking up a lot about who people were from the sound of their voice. Very similarly to, I'm not sure what the name is, of, you know, the people who read your characteristics or who you are from your handwriting. It's a very similar thing to do with the voice, and it started to fascinate me. And with any gift, as you use it, it grows. So here we are.
Good for you. Yeah, what a gift.
So what I really want to know about you is your journey in regards to using your voice, because I know a little bit about your story, but I want to hear from you if you have found it easy or if you found it difficult, and what were there any obstacles, and how are you finding it now?
Yeah, lovely place to start, Sharleen. Well, you know, I started my business with a blog. I was afraid to use my voice. I was quite afraid to be seen. frankly. So I hid a lot of the time, at least it looks to me like I hid a lot of the time, behind a blog and writing. And that was the best I could do. I didn't know it at the time, but I was living with a lot of insecure thinking about myself, about my image. I was new on the scene and I was blessed to have had a lot of success very quickly, but I wasn't prepared for it. I was creating this coaching business that started as a lifestyle blog that Forbes picked up on and promoted for me. So I had this lovely initial takeoff in my business. But underneath, I was often self-conscious, Sharleen. I was suffering those insecure thoughts of, how does it look to the world? It needs to be perfect. Oh, I'm not coming forward. I don't want them to hear my accent. I don't want them to see my crooked teeth. I'm worried what they're going to think of me. And it wasn't enough to stop me sharing my message and my voice, but it had me doing it behind a screen all the time, writing rather than speaking, having perfectly glamorized photos rather than just showing up naturally. All that changed for me about 4 years ago when I took myself off the hamster wheel that had me constantly pushing and growing and trying to do more and have more and go more. And my wisdom spoke strongly to me and asked me to just step away. And it was at a critical point, actually, because it was at a critical point in my business where I was being offered a 7-figure opportunity. I was almost being guaranteed, actually, a 7-figure opportunity that would take me to a whole other level. But I'm glad I listened, because I heard deeply that it was time to step back and come back home to grace, home to self. I'd done a lot of traveling at that point. I'd worked with a lot of clients at that point, and my soul was tired, I started questioning, there's got to be more to life. I had this incredibly glamorous 5-star life going on that I really wanted and I loved and I created it. But, there was something deeper that I was searching for. And in taking myself away from that, I went on a retreat for a weekend about 6 months after that decision. And on that retreat, my mind got so quiet that I had room for an insight to pop in. And the insight I had on that retreat completely changed my world, because I finally saw that the feelings of self-consciousness, the feelings of what are they going to think of me, the tension, the stress, the self-concern popped and finally loosened its grip. I saw that my experience was coming from thought, and that this thinking was generating my behavior, including my behavior around how I was using my voice and only writing and hiding behind these perfect photo shoots and these blogs. This was rapid, Sharleen. This was huge, because within about 3 months, I started showing up on camera. This was huge. I started showing up, not because my business required it. I've heard it out there many times, get on camera, do it, let them see you. But simply because I dropped out of the self-consciousness. I dropped back into grace. Grace with a capital G. And I just felt so much freer and less concerned about myself. I got freedom from myself. And so I started showing up on camera. I started doing videos. I started doing Facebook Lives. I started saying yes to these sort of interviews. And, you know, the rest is history. I'm still loving and enjoying sharing more visibly in this way. So that's a little bit of my journey. There were obstacles, but we got through them.
There's so many gems in what you've shared, you know, and it's particularly poignant what you said about getting on video, not because it was a business move as such, but it felt what it sounded like it was way more organic than that. Is that how it felt to you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
You know, people, coaches as well, my own coaches have been encouraging me for years to get on video, but it didn't matter how much good advice people were giving me about the next thing for the business. I couldn't see it, and I was too afraid. It was sort of living with that gun to your head, you know, that it was too scary for whatever reason. And I think this is what I'm really seeing a lot with my own clients too, is that when we get lost in scary thinking about ourselves and we stay there in that cycle, you know, it's exhausting and it's hard to come forth with your whole self and your whole message. You know, so I have found a freedom, like you said, an organic showing up. Now it amuses me that now I can just be walking my dogs in the olive grove in the morning, switch on the Facebook Live to my group, and there I am giving a helpful message for the day without any sort of, you know, how's this going to come across? You know, do I look okay? What are they going to say? So it's been a real change.
And I love that. And whenever I watch any of your Facebook Lives, I mean, you're a woman after my own heart because one of my values is luxury. And whenever I look at one of your Facebook Lives, you're usually doing something luxurious, drinking or eating something luxurious in a very luxurious setting. So when you talk about doing live streams from an olive grove, like how wonderful is that? What I wanted to ask you is, in the present time, how do you feel about using your voice in a market that is very saturated with service type businesses, such as business coaching? Have you ever felt the temptation to compete? Or do you find that it's easier to stay in your own lane and make your offerings from that space?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot out there. I think what I've seen to be true is that people are drawn, like you were to me, people are drawn to the feeling you're emitting rather than all the, you know, offers and words and everything that go with it. And that's been very helpful for me to realize. That's where I see there is no competition, you know, because we're all emitting a different feeling. And so I do stay in my own lane and make it my responsibility to just be living in that higher level of well-being more of the time and letting that feeling come forth when I share. Sometimes I can hear other people's stuff and it can distract me because then you're out of your own lane. So I'm not a huge follower of tons of information. In fact, one of the things I always say to my clients is, let's start with an information detox, you know, because we can really get off our game listening to 100 different ways or pieces of advice on what we should be doing. But back to the feeling, you know, and I talked about this, Sharleen, in a course we did. I'm not sure if you were with me, but we talked about this spiritual marketing. And what is your spiritual marketing? Well, it is the thing that people are drawn to about you. And no amount of fantastic copywriting can evoke that, which is why I love now being able to share on video and being able to use my voice, because people hear and can get a feeling as to whether or not I'm for them. And I think that's, you know, how you and I ended up here, you know, that it wasn't so much what I was throwing out on social media, but rather the feeling you got from our conversations or our Facebook lives.
That's wonderful, you know, and as I'm listening to the content of your words, you know, I'm really picking up a lot in your vocal code about who you are. And why I was drawn to ask you to be part of this series is your voice is like delectable pieces of fruit that you would place on a table. Your voice is very placed and it's very deliberate. And it shows me that whenever you do speak, you have a lot of impact because you really do mean what you say. There is a very deliberate way that you speak. You don't allow your voice to rush ahead of your thoughts. Your voice comes from a very deeply embodied part of you. Another thing that I can hear about your voice is that you like a slower pace of life, and you find a slower pace of life more deeply pleasurable. And it also shows me that in a slower pace of life and being more deliberate in the way that you speak, you pick your friends very deliberately and you pick who's around you very deliberately. And because of that, you're able to cultivate a wonderful circle and a circle of people around you who all feed you and you feed them. And it's this wonderful little society that you can build. Does that resonate for you, what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, spot on, spot on. Absolutely. Yeah, there's you know, I used to live in the city. I used to live in London at 120 miles an hour, you know, waking up to crazy alarm clocks that had to go off at least 6 times before I would get out of bed, and getting on the rush hour commute and doing all of that. And when I was in it, I just got on with it and put up with it, but it was very fast. And so I lived fast. And I convinced myself that slow was boring, you know, which is simply not true. You know, I've challenged myself in many ways, including completely reversing my lifestyle from one of high speed and exhaustion and adrenaline to a quieter, slower pace of life. So it's not to say that I wouldn't go back to the city, but what you're picking up on and what I notice in the slower pace piece is that I am a little less tolerant now of speed and rushing, flaky people that are superficial, and people that, you know, like you said, I feed and I'm fed by them. So it's important to me to have nourishing relationships and to nourish within my relationships, including my community of clients and followers. So yeah, that was super cool.
So have you noticed a difference in your voice since you've started to align more to your own values?
Yes, I've noticed more than anything that when my thinking is centered, less insecure, present, then I am quieter, slower, and more aligned. So I do see a relationship, Sharleen, between how fast we're going internally and how fast we end up speaking externally, right? And so that for me has been more of the correlation than the values. The values have been very important to, you know, live according to those that are most, you know, that you find important. For me, well-being is huge. But more than anything, it's what is the quality of thinking I'm in? And if it's too fast and it's rushed and it's jumping into the future, then my voice will most likely be reflecting that at a much speedier, higher pitched pace. So there's a correlation there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful to hear that we can have more actually by slowing down. It's such an oxymoron, if I'm using that word correctly, because the logical way of doing things is to have more. You need to do more and do it faster. Do it now. Do everything now. And it's just not true. It's not true at all. What I would love to know, because you made this decision in your business to say no to things and to say yes to other things that were more aligned for you. And you slowed down and you become more present. And I'd love to know how that impacted other areas. You've spoken about how it's impacted your business. You've spoken a little bit about friendships. I would love to know what else you've noticed.
Well, the well-being, the health. I mean, that just shot up hugely, just living more and more in feelings of just good feelings. I mean, I was so serious. Everything was so serious. And I literally see that I've lightened up, you know, like literally lightened up. So it's a very physical experience when you get freedom from insecure thinking. You know, yes, the ability to use my voice and to come forward on screen happened, you know, gradually and continues to unfold. But that physical experience of just radiance and glow, I see that as indicative of greater levels of well-being. And that is what's on offer. You know, people think it's about escaping to the mountains, or, you know, in my case, moving to Italy and giving up, you know, living La Dolce Vita. But I know lots of people living La Dolce Vita who are more wound up and as speedy as they were living in New York City. It's not about environment. You know, if your thinking doesn't really change and you just put yourself in a new environment, you have the same experience again. So for me, getting the freedom from the insecure thoughts that were generating exhaustion, tension, stress, urgency, and speed, just left me living more in a good feeling more of the time. So it's impacted the physical, Sharleen. You know, I was someone who would get sick frequently, had all these symptoms all the time. No one could ever figure out. I was off to all sorts of doctors. Nobody really knew what it was. Those symptoms cleared up dramatically. You know, like I'm someone who today I'll get the normal cold maybe once, twice a year, some sort of clean out, but nothing like the way I was living in constant dull lethargy, you know. And another area, such a good question, because it's impacted so many areas. My relationship changed dramatically. You know, I stopped taking things so personal.
Mm.
That was huge. You see, anytime there might have been friction or an argument, I used to use my insecurity to make it about me, to make it mean something about the relationship or me. And so again, getting freedom from those insecure thoughts has allowed a richer, deeper connection in my relationship. Now, it doesn't mean it's free of conflict and arguments, but instead of me avoiding the conflict or the argument or being afraid of the conflict or the argument, I now gracefully engage it and have depersonalized a lot of things in life. I have depersonalized as a result of this freedom. And what a free way to live. What a lighter way to live. You know, people say, well, how do you get an enjoyable life, Grace? Do you have to do everything luxury? Do you have to live in Italy? No, 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 no. It's not coming from the external. I can tell you now, I've been in some of the world's best hotels and I was having the most awful experience because I had no freedom from the insecure thoughts.
Mm.
Okay? My experience of the world did not shift. My surroundings just got better at that time.
Mm.
Now I can be in those same places or in these beautiful, luxurious experiences, but fully enjoy them because there's a lightness to my experience that wasn't there before. So I hope it answers the question. You know, it's the physical's being touched, the relationship is being touched, my connection to God, the universe, source, what I call the intelligence behind life got stronger and stronger. Because when you're not living in this constant noise, you're not paying attention to this constant noise in your head, there's such a rich experience waiting for you.
Mm. And I can certainly relate to what you've said, you know, about it touching other areas, because there is no segmentation in terms of life. There is no business life and that's that. And then your relationship and that's that. Everything ties into one.
Yeah.
So I'm really deeply pleased to hear how your life has really become richer. The word that I see is enriched, you know, and it stems from a decision that you made. Because what I always say to speakers, to singers, is that, especially if I have a client come to me to speak about their fears or feeling intimidated by giving an offering on stage in the form of singing or speaking, I always say how you feel on stage depends upon what you are focusing on and who you choose to listen to. And what I really hear in your experience is that you chose to listen to a certain thing and not to listen to another certain thing. And what I would like to hear about is the process for you to make that choice, because it's not always easy. Society is this all pervasive machine that has its own messages. And those messages come thick and fast through the TV, through social media. And then we have a community and they have their own belief system. And that comes in thick and fast through conversations. And then if it's not aligned with you, you can find yourself doing it and being it anyway, because it's so pervasive. So for you, what was the journey in making your own choice, regardless of all of the other messages that you were receiving at the time?
Yeah. The feeling was always letting me know where I was on the Richter scale of getting lost. And so even though we can be susceptible to other people's messages and getting lost in other people's ideas, and I see this all the time when coaches come to me and people that want to start a business come to me and they've taken every single course under the sun, but nothing has worked. Always along the way, they've known, we all know when we're just jumping out of insecurity into something, just listening out of insecurity, I hope this is going to fix me, and jumping into something. The feeling is all we've got, Sharleen, to let us know when we're going down the rabbit hole or when we're actually following our wisdom. And so what I have found with a lot of my clients is they'll say, well, Grace, I can't discern the difference between when it's my wisdom or when it's this insecurity that's in the driving seat. And I'll say to them too, the feeling of insecurity is tense and urgent and stressful and everything needs to happen now and you better press the purchase button now, like the gun's about to go off in your head, right? The feeling of wisdom isn't like that. You know, it's very personal to everybody, but you'll know that the feeling of wisdom doesn't come with all of that noise, you know, when you just know something's right. And I think it's about getting back to that, Sharleen. So a lot of the time, you know, when you say, how did I do it? Well, I followed the feeling and I also switched off a lot of noise. You know? I also kind of got really discerning about what I was willing to engage with and listen to. I was fortunate to come across the principles behind every experience in life that was originated by Sydney Banks. And I feel like I found home with these principles. And you can learn more about Sydney Banks. He has many videos that are now available on YouTube, and they've created a website for him. But you know, I feel like when I found those principles, nothing else made sense anymore. And I think that helped me to just simplify. You know, I found the truth, and everything else just sounded like noise. So great question, powerful question. And, you know, the feeling, knowing the difference between wisdom and insecurity, and finding that thing that just really works for you and going in that direction.
I really love what you're sharing, and everything that you have said so far is something that I'm experiencing for myself. And so I can really attest to the validity and the truth of everything that you're saying. The other thing about your voice is so still. My goodness, it's so still and it's so rooted. It's like a tree planted, you know, on a beautiful summer's day. That's how I hear your voice. And when you are that rooted and grounded, there's not much that can make you move, you know, and you become unflappable. And,
Yes.
you know, you respond. I love that you are responding to the things that make you feel alive and not reacting to the things that bring you stress and pain. And it's important that the viewers out there, that you really understand that your voice isn't just an expression of your DNA. Your voice is an expression of who you really are. And whenever you get on stage or behind the podium, people are reacting and responding to you. There's an energetic exchange that happens on stage. And when the energetic exchange is love and contentment and peace and creativity, that has the power to open so many more doors than if you get up there with stress and trying to project an image that isn't necessarily reflective of who you are in your inner self. So thank you for sharing with me today. I'm really appreciative of that. What are you looking forward to expanding into? What is it that maybe there's something that you're growing into currently, if you can share, that you've touched it and you're like, oh, I want some more of that. Can you express anything that you are walking into at the moment that you would like more of?
That's beautiful. I love your questions, Sharleen. They're really come from a place of depth and strength. So really well done.
Thank you.
I would say I'm expanding into deeper and deeper levels of this peace and well-being. As grounded as I sound, I know there's infinite levels to this feeling. And in touching that space, as I have been, and the changes that it has created, I'm hungry for more of that, even deeper levels of that. Because I don't think it stops here. And I've seen that over time, that it has deepened and it has developed. And there's nothing like it. There's just nothing like it in the world. Nothing can give that feeling. There's an innocence when people turn to alcohol and drugs. There's an innocence when people turn to things outside of themselves in the effort to feel their well-being. Now, I always say everybody's doing the best they can to get back to these feelings of well-being. So let's not judge it. But when you really feel it from within, and it's not coming from something you've done or made or accomplished, it's just very nourishing and very rich. So I would say even more of that is what I'm expanding into. It's my soul goal in life. And therefore bringing that to my audience, bringing that to my people. And I know there's a book in me. So there's an expansion of, writing again, but writing that book and showing up on stage to those audiences.
Yeah.
Just sharing more. Yeah.
I love that. It's so beautiful. And I've got chills just thinking about that. So I want to touch on this briefly before we close, because it's very important that the viewers out there, that you realize that all of these concepts that we're talking about, all of these good feelings, they do actually have tangible and practical outworkings beyond the non-physical and beyond the non-tangible. I'd love to know how these good feelings have impacted your finances. I know that you turned down a 7-figure opportunity. I'd love to know the growth of your finances or the state of play as soon as you stepped into this wonderful, graceful presence.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, so I got way less insecure about money. like getting freedom from insecure thinking, getting space from that noise in your head ripples into all areas. And financially was one of them. Because in the past, when I had made a lot of money, I still had all the insecurity about money. So I may as well not have had the money, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still was like really, really always thinking about money. My riches have come from being so less focused on money, so less concerned about the money, which I can only put down to, again, seeing that the insecurity, the feelings of insecurity were, again, coming from thought and creating a mess. So I'm less avoidant around money. I used to be afraid to open my bank statements, and oh my God, if the bank ever called me, it was my worst nightmare. It's just more graceful, On a tangible level, I remember when I started coming forward with this desire to help clients gain more freedom from insecurity as a means to growing their business. I was concerned because up until that point, I had given very tangible advice on how to make great copy and how to make good money doing X, Y, and Z. And it's not that I don't still give advice, Sharleen, but I couldn't keep doing that because I realized the missing link to success for people is not in the how-to. The missing link is over here in people getting so caught up in those insecure thoughts. So initially, when I came forward, my business took a hit. My finances took a hit. People who originally followed me weren't interested anymore. People were more interested in a quick fix how-to, even though it became apparent that they were taking lots of courses and nothing was changing. But I couldn't turn away, Sharleen. I knew this is the direction I must go in with people. And so I kept at it. And I built a whole new client base. I developed a whole new direction. I doubled my income at one point in the space of a year. Originally it went down when I made the change, and then it went back up and it doubled. I started hosting clients on retreat. So rather than just seeing them online, I started inviting them to Italy to spend 3 days with me. So I made that a core part of my business, enjoying the lifestyle, the slower pace, the luxury hotels, and doing the coaching. And right now, most recently, I've been invited by an Italian fashion brand to collaborate with them and to provide coaching for their clients who they're styling. So financially, things changed, when you ask that question. It's a powerful question. Yeah, but the thing that sticks out for me is less about, the income increase and more about the freedom about money.
Yeah.
That woke up. Yeah.
Listening to you, my eyes have gone all misty because it really, really speaks to me very deeply. And the intangible becomes tangible. And responding to life with peace and grace and ease are spiritual concepts and spiritual solutions to real life scenarios and problems. So I want to thank you for being a living and breathing embodiment of these truths. It's so important. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me today. I hope it's been helpful to the audience.
Yes, I'm sure it has. It's been a very powerful conversation for me to have with you. Where can people find you online and on social media?
Well, I have a wonderful Facebook group community in my group known as Grace Notes. So you can find me there. I'm sure, Sharleen, you will add a name or a link somewhere for me. And you can also find me on gracefulcoaching.net. So that's my official website and where you can get more information and reach out to me from there.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're
And
welcome.
you reminded me actually that I didn't tell people where they can find me. So you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. That's where I am mainly. Sharleen, the Vocal Alchemist, on both platforms. And if you are on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications of new episodes of Vocal Code Conversations and more content to do with singing and speaking as well. And if you would like to go online, you can find me at myvocaltherapy.com/coaching for speakers. Had to think of the URL there. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording, but if you stay on the line just for a brief second, that would be really good.
Thank
And
you.
viewers, thank you so much. Please tell me below what your main takeaways were from today. I would love to hear from you. And I'll see you soon.